Every now and then, theme parks all across the world have to close their roller coasters permanently and give them their farewell. This can be an abrupt or rather impulsive decision, or it could be a decision that the park had already made years ago prior to the closure. I mention this because all roller coasters get removed for one reason or another. Perhaps they're old, unreliable, not popular, or just need to be removed to make way for something new. Regardless, I wanted to look through 15 roller coasters, mostly in America but some in Canada, that could be seeing their demise as soon as 5 years from now. Before we get started, I did want to note that I will not be including any old Woodies that were featured in my latest video regarding what rides need an RMC conversion. There were a couple on there and definitely would have been on this list too, but I didn't want to fill this one up with coasters we just talked about. I'd highly encourage you to go back and watch that video after this one. While we're on the topic of the channel, I have to ask that if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. These videos take a lot of time and effort to make, so it's always motivating when I see positive reception. Now with that being said, here are 15 roller coasters that could be gone within the next 5 years, starting with 2 honorable mentions. The first one is Dragon Mountain at Marineland in Canada. If you'd asked me what coasters could be gone within the next couple of years back in 2019 or so, Dragon Mountain would have definitely been one of my top choices. Nowadays though, it seems as if Marineland is having a bit of a 180. The park is adding new rides and attractions more aggressively, and I think they might just be caring for the park more so than they ever have before. Because of this, I've led myself to believe that Dragon Mountain is going to stick around for at least a little bit longer. The second honorable mention in the video is Montana Rusa at La Feria Chapultepec, Mexico in Mexico. This coaster has been standing but not operating since the park closed in 2019 following the Chimera incident. It's unfortunate to see one of the largest wooden coasters on the planet go, but the park has confirmed its demolition, so I had to give it a mention in this video. Now that those 2 coasters are out of the way, let's dive right in. Number 1, Anaconda at King's Dominion. I personally think this one is a no-brainer. It's an unpopular ride that's hard to maintain, but the only problem is that it's located in a park that can't really afford to keep losing major coasters. I honestly believe that the only reason Anaconda is still around is because Volcano had to unexpectedly bite the dust in 2018. To some it may not seem like a big deal that Volcano was removed, but take it from a guy who had one of the most memorable rides ever on Volcano, and yeah, it really hurts. Eventually, and I'm talking as soon as 2023, Anaconda will probably be hitting the scrapyard, and I'm honestly not thinking anything will replace it for a while. It's quite sad for the park, but the ride doesn't appear to be very good anyways, so it's not the biggest deal. Number 2, Alpine Bobsleds at Great Escape. Real quick, we are going to run through the 3 coasters I ultimately decided on in my video about Six Flags removing some coasters soon. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, the chain did announce that 15 rides across their parks would be biting the dust soon. This is including approximately 2 to 3 roller coasters, so my first immediate pick was Alpine Bobsleds. This ride is a mechanical nightmare, or maybe it's not and the park is just too lazy to maintain it properly. I'm not really sure, but I can confirm that it's never ever open. Matter of fact, it's closed so often that even if it happens to be open during your visit, the park will sometimes proceed to list it as closed on the app so that no one gets their hopes up when they show up to ride it. It's quite a sad reality, especially since this ride model is starting to get so rare. If you really need an intimate bobsled fix, I think your best bet is to head to Texas and ride La Vibora. Number 3, Batwing at Six Flags America. Notice how the title of this video is 15 roller coasters that could, keyword could, be removed within the next 5 years. That means that I'm not 100% sure about a couple of these choices. In the Six Flags ride removal predictions, I did mention that Batwing was my 3rd choice for coasters to be removed. That said, in the comments of that video, you guys did bring up some really good points, and now I'm a bit more on the fence. I mean, I'm certainly glad that there's hope for the ride to stick around, especially with it being such a rare ride type, but I just do not know what to think. It's closed a lot and it's very unreliable, and there's no denying that, so within the next 5 years, I'm not so sure, but maybe within the next decade, I would keep your eye on it. Number 4, Goliath at Six Flags in New England. Along with Alpine Bobsleds, I felt pretty confident with this prediction. I have some really close friends who live in Connecticut who frequent this park, and they rarely ever get to ride this thing. It's more than likely a terrible ride, it's probably incredibly hard to maintain, and its operating conditions are laughably flawed. It cannot rain for it to run as expected for such a problematic ride, but it also can't be under 60 degrees. Bear in mind that this is New England, so that happens a lot. If this doesn't scream ride removal to you, I don't know what does. I think it's clear as day that Goliath will be gone within the next 5 years. Number 5, Vortex at Carowinds. It's up to you guys if you really want to count this one. I don't think this coaster will necessarily be removed, but its identity as Vortex will probably be gone soon. This is one of the last B&M stand-up coasters in existence, and maybe the very last one that I could see be converted into a floorless coaster. We saw it happen at another park in the same chain with Patriot at California's Great America in I believe 2016, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. But get this, the coaster before Patriot was also named Vortex. Look, I just think this is so obvious. I do actually enjoy stand-up, so I'd personally rather Vortex stay as Vortex, but I know that's an incredibly unpopular opinion, so it is what it is. Number 6, Blue Streak at Conneaut Lake Park. One of the parks struggling the most with the COVID-19 pandemic is this one right here. Matter of fact, they were struggling greatly before the pandemic hit. This park is one of the most run down on Earth, and the same can easily be said for Blue Streak for coasters. This ride literally felt like it was about to fall apart. I had the chance to ride this in 2019, and it was the roughest coaster experience I've ever encountered. You should all know by now that I'm never really bothered by roughness, but Blue Streak cranked it up to another level, and it was just laughable. There does seem to be some hope though. The park did recently file for bankruptcy, and there does appear to be interested buyers, so my one and only request for the possible new owners of the park are to maintain Blue Streak just a little bit better than how it has been recently. Otherwise, I think it very well could be removed soon along with the park, so let's just wait and see what happens. Number 7, Desperado at Buffalo Bill's Hotel and Casino. Out of all these on the list, I actually think this is one of the more unlikely to be fully removed. Rather, I think it'll sit there dormant for decades, to be honest. It's really quite sad with how revolutionary this ride was when it opened, but it does seem as if its days of operating are over. The owner said that there is only a slight chance of it ever running again, and what hurts even more for me is that I went to Buffalo Bill's just a couple days after it last ran. That was easily the biggest and most painful slap in the face I've ever had as a coaster enthusiast. Desperado now hasn't ran since November 2019, and its future remains to be one of the biggest mysteries in the coaster world. I have no idea what's going to happen with this ride, but I'm really praying that this actually gets to run one last time soon. Number 8, Excalibur at Valleyfair. I've always thought that this was a coaster in danger of being removed. To be honest, it looks like a very enjoyable little ride, but I'm surprised it hasn't left the park already. This coaster is located in a section of the park that receives multiple floods every year. The coaster is already hard to maintain as is, with it being the same ride model as Matterhorn and Gemini, but this doesn't help it in the slightest. There's nothing else I can really say about this one, but I do hope I can get the opportunity to ride it before it's gone for good. Number 9, Ice Mountain Bobsleds at Enchanted Forest. One of America's most unknown and slept on parks is Enchanted Forest, an old school storytale themed park located in Salem, Oregon. Now, it isn't just Ice Mountain Bobsleds that I could be seeing removed, it's the entire park. This pains me to say because visiting this place in 2018 was so incredibly memorable, but it's just the truth. Along with Conneaut Lake Park, this is one of the hardest hit theme parks in America from the pandemic. They were in so much trouble actually that they had to start up a GoFundMe page to get them through the winter months and into their next season, which is supposed to be their 50th anniversary. I honestly don't see the economic crisis we've been faced with getting much better over the next year or two, so I have a feeling that this could be their last year. They've constantly been talking about how they really genuinely hope they're able to survive, but the way they've been wording things just makes it seem like they really want to make it to their 50th year anniversary at the bare minimum. Number 10, Big Timber Log Ride, also at Enchanted Forest. I realize I never really got to talk about Ice Mountain Bobsleds itself, so I'll be talking about both of the park's 2 roller coasters for a brief period of time. Both of these are some of the most unique coasters anywhere on Earth. Ice Mountain is bizarre as hell, but very memorable, and Timber Mountain is like the most water flume but barely coaster roller coaster ever. I truly hope these 2 attractions stick around for the long run, but the way it's looking right now is really quite sad. I'd highly recommend donating to their GoFundMe page, even if it's just $1 or $2. They honestly need all the help they can get. Number 11, Dragonfire at Canada's Wonderland. Okay, what we've been talking about for the last few minutes has been pretty upsetting, but there's something a bit more positive to talk about here. I know a coaster removal isn't a very good thing, but the possibilities of what could replace Dragonfire are practically endless. It's situated on a flat plot of land, good for a small, compact, ejector-filled coaster. This is all exciting to think about, but this could be over 5 years in the future if the park decides to shift their focus into RMCing Wild Beast first. Again, if you haven't watched the video about what Woodies could be RMC'd soon, go check it out. I went a lot more in depth about Wild Beast there. As for Dragonfire, this was one of the few attractions that opened with the park in 1981 that remains at Canada's Wonderland. I really enjoy classic aero loopers, but between the park running out of room for places to expand and this ride becoming increasingly hard to maintain, I just think it makes sense. I enjoyed Dragonfire for what it was worth, but I wouldn't really be sad to see it go because like I said before, the possibilities for what could replace it are practically endless. Number 12, Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. From one aero looper to another, here's a ride removal that would actually break my heart. I love this ride so much. It's had one of the biggest turnarounds in my history as a coaster enthusiast, as at a point in time it was my least favorite coaster anywhere. Now, it's up there with my favorites at Magic Mountain. Unlike most arrows, this thing has a monstrous layout that packs a ridiculous punch. Viper is intense, plain and simple, and I'd hate to see it removed. That said, it only makes sense and here's why. Like I said with Dragonfire, it's very hard to maintain these arrows and the park did just put a lot of time and effort into a refurb for the ride. I think this is the last time the park is going to be doing something like this for Viper because the reception doesn't appear to be worth it from a business standpoint. The ride always has no line at all, even if it's a busy day at the park. I will tell you from experience and as someone who frequents Magic Mountain, Viper is always a walk-on. I have not ever waited more than 5 minutes for this coaster. These couple of factors all make it very obvious that it's reaching the end of its life, so I'd encourage you all to go to the park and ride it more than you usually would. Because of the refurb that was just done to the ride though, I think it'll stick around for at least a couple more years and maybe past that 5-year mark, but definitely no more than a decade. Number 13, Excalibur at Funtown Splashtown, USA. The second Excalibur in this video after Valleyfair's is on here for a very different reason. This ride is actually in perfectly fine condition. It looks fantastic and it's easily the biggest coaster you can find in the state of Maine. My concern though is that the park stated that if they aren't able to open for its opening day this year, which is usually give or take mid-May maybe, that they would close forever. I could see them getting the permission to reopen by then, but even if they did open up, that statement confirms that they might not be able to pull through for much longer regardless. I hope this is not the case because Excalibur looks like such a fun CCI, but it's definitely a possibility I would not at all rule out. Number 14, Hellcat at Clementon Park. Like Desperado, I think Hellcat might just be sitting in its spot for years and years to come. The park didn't exactly have the funds to support or properly maintain such a massive Woody, so the ride was always just seen as excruciatingly rough and uncomfortable. At last, the park closed down in 2019, so the future of this ride is pretty questionable. Like I said, the park doesn't really have much funds to support this ride, so I don't even know if they have enough funds to remove it, but there have been various rumors about who could buy the property and maybe revive the park and the coaster. In the state it's in right now though, it does seem that Hellcat could be permanently defunct. Number 15, Possessed at Dorney Park. The last coaster I wanted to talk about in this video is the good old Intamin Impulse Possessed. I first rode this in 2018 and absolutely loved it, but when I returned to the park for the 2020 season, it hadn't opened all year. Why is this? Well, simply put, for such a short operating season, it's not really worth the high maintenance costs. I do understand that Wicked Twister opened at Cedar Point despite their short operating season as well, but I guess it was just because the park it's in is Cedar Point and they really didn't want any rides closed for their 150th year anniversary. Nonetheless, I'm not sure it'll be around for much longer. Its days seem to be numbered, and if that rumored gravity group is still built here, the ride would most likely have to be removed anyways. I hope the ride runs at least for another year or two come the 2021 season, but I wouldn't count on it being around for much longer afterwards. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I understand if you didn't because the topic was so sad, but take these opinions and thoughts with a grain of salt. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what coasters you could be seeing removed within the next 5 to 10 years. Of course, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and until next time, I'll see you all soon. Bye guys.